Let's go over my thoughts and ratings of the 7 books I read in the 5th week of 2026. And Now She's Gone by Rachel Halsall Hall is available on Kindle Unlimited, and this follows Grayson, who is looking into the supposed disappearance of a woman named Isabel. But as she uncovers Isabel's secrets, she realizes that this case may be way more complicated and dangerous than she expected. This is a tension-filled, emotionally charged, and relatively fast-paced, multi-layered thriller. This is a cat-and-mouse style thriller that tackles themes of survival, manipulation, and power struggles. I'm somebody who kind of struggles whenever there's a theme of money motivations and business dealings throughout my thrillers, and this one definitely has that. But aside from that, it's really the only thing that I didn't really like in this book. Other than that, I thought it was totally gripping. It pulled me in so many different directions. It kept me guessing, and the major reveal totally had my jaw on the floor. This is my second book by this author, and it will absolutely not be my last. I think that she's a great writer and writes really smart thrillers. I rated 4.25 stars. The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones is the third book in the Indian Lake trilogy, and it follows Jade Daniels, and she is back in Proof Rock working as a history teacher when she is pulled into a case of disappearing children and is finally forced to confront the history of Proof Rock that nobody else is willing to confront. I really love this series. It really dives into Stephen Graham Jones' knowledge of the horror genre, and slashers in particular. This book is very fast-paced. It has so much going on. It is very multi-layered. It's supernatural, slasher-esque, it's haunting, it's absolutely gripping. It's quite long, but truly it doesn't feel like it because it only takes place in a very short period of time, and I think that adds to the pacing and tension of the story. I will say there were parts throughout that didn't really surprise me, and then there were other parts that did surprise me. Some of it I did find a little bit confusing, and I had to find some clarity on a Reddit thread, but once I did get that clarity, everything clicked into place for me, and it made me love the story even more. Jade Daniels is forever my final girl. I absolutely love this trilogy. I think that this book might be my second favorite following My Heart is a Chainsaw, but I rated it 4.5 stars. If you haven't tried this series yet, you definitely must. The Shining by Stephen King follows Jack Torrance, who works as the caretaker of the Overlook Hotel during the off-season, and as the weather ramps up, there seems to be some strange and ominous forces not only surrounding the hotel itself, but also surrounding Jack's young son, Danny, who has this unique ability. I've seen the movie for this many years ago, long before I ever picked up this book, so the details of the movie are a little bit fuzzy in my head, but I know that Stephen King himself doesn't really like the film. But as I was reading this, I couldn't help but picture Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson throughout the story. And I'm sure that that's a really common experience for people who have seen the movie and then read the book. But I don't remember the movie focusing as much on Jack's internal struggles with his alcoholism, and I don't remember his wife's character being as headstrong as she is in this book. So yeah, I'll definitely have to rewatch the movie to see how it compares to the book because yeah, I don't really remember. But this is absolutely gripping and chilling, and there were moments throughout that were pretty frightening. I really enjoyed this. I absolutely flew through it. I don't think I've flown through a Stephen King book this fast before, but I read it in like 3 hours. I think possession horror and isolated setting horror are some of my favorite types of horror books, and so you put those two together and it just really worked for me. I rated this book 4.5 stars. I think it's my second favorite Stephen King book following Pet Sematary. I read The Wrong House by Zaya Ryan with my Patreon exclusive book club. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and it follows a couple that decide to break into their dream home when they accidentally unalive somebody inside. Throughout this story, they are trying to cover up the fact that they unalived somebody. This was a very fast-paced, pretty short, plot-driven story that was absolutely ridiculous, but pretty entertaining. I will say I thought it relied a little bit too much on coincidence, and there were questions that I had throughout that just really never got answered. I didn't think this was really anything to write home about, but if you're looking for a palate cleanser, a popcorn style thriller that's mostly plot driven, a little bit ridiculous, and has some good for her moments throughout, then you might enjoy this one. I rated it 3 stars. Such a Perfect Family by Nalini Singh follows a man named Tavish, and he has some suspicions in his past women that he has gone out with that have ended up no longer living. And so when his family goes up in flames, he is the prime suspect, and throughout the story he is trying to clear his name because he knows that he didn't do this. I definitely had a theory about where this was going before I even started it, and I'm happy to report that I was wrong. Throughout the story, we're mainly following Tavish as he's trying to clear his name, but we're also following one of the detectives through his personal notes as he is investigating Tavish. I really enjoy a story where we're following a character that we love to hate, and I thought that Tavish was pretty unlikable, but I still found myself rooting for him. I will say that there is a layer of like businessy, money-motivated kind of stuff throughout that just didn't really work for me personally. But the overall essence of the story and the different layers with the characters really worked for me, and I was engaged throughout the entire story. It pulled me in a lot of different directions, but at a certain point I had a pretty clear image of where everything was headed, and I was correct at that point, but I was thoroughly entertained that I honestly didn't really mind by that point. This book covers some heavy themes such as familial dysfunction and deep dark family secrets, manipulation, power struggles. I thought it was really good. I rated Such a Perfect Family 3.75 stars. Cruelty Free by Caroline Glenn follows Lila, who is a disgraced movie actress who returns to Hollywood after 10 years after the disappearance of her young daughter Josie. When she returns to Hollywood, she decides she is going to start a skincare brand, and the way that her new business and her revenge collide is absolutely diabolical. This is messy and has body horror, it's weird, and it has an FMC that you just love to hate. She's awful but low-key justified and so entertaining. I was so gripped by this book. I thought it was totally deranged and off the rails, so entertaining and just unputdownable. The things that happen in this book are truly shocking, but I will say that I guessed like one of the major twists, but it really didn't take away from my enjoyment of the story. I ended up rating this book 4.75 stars. And lastly, Tradwife by Saratoga Schaffer publishes on February 10th, and this follows a Tradwife influencer named Camille who has always wanted a child, and she will get one by any means necessary, even if that means being impregnated by a demonic creature that lives in the woods near her house. So throughout this story, we follow Camille as she gets impregnated by this creature, and her husband is a workaholic who is totally oblivious to everything going on in his life. He was absolutely infuriating. And Camille, again, is one of those characters that you just love to hate. She is doing these awful, ridiculous, no good things, but you for some reason can't help but root for her. This was absolutely ridiculous, but in the best way. It was so entertaining, and I seriously did not want it to end. Of course, there is a very common theme with tradwives and like religion and things of that nature that I just can't get into. But truly, that was the only aspect of the story that I just didn't vibe with. This was a little bit of an obsession influencer thriller with the vibe of Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder, Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin, and Delicate Condition by Daniel Valentine. It also has some body horror and some really disgusting moments throughout that just had me like gagging and laughing simultaneously. It was absurd. It was so much fun. I rated it 4.75 stars. Thank you so much for watching. Now please leave me a comment and let me know your favorite book that you read last week. My favorite book I read last week was Tradwife by Saratoga Schaffer.